an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Six of Crows, chapters 27 through 33, co-hosted by Liz Brinnehl.
Hello!
In these chapters, the heist goes even more sideways, and the last person that you expect to get nailed gets nailed, and not in the fun way.
I'm so glad I'm here for these chapters. Though really all of them are like that. Like, I don't.
Welcome to Spoil Me.
Sorry.
Girl, you're piling on my intro.
I'm just so excited to be here.
You're pulling a Rashawn.
Well, that's a compliment, right?
Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha.
And I am Liz.
And yeah, so these chapters you're excited about. Please expand.
Extremely. Well, the whole thing is good. And the whole premise of the book is misdirection, right? Mm-hmm. And which they tell you on page 1. It's all about running the heist, and it's about pickpocketing and making you think there's one thing going on and then pulling something else. But then the other main trope of the heist is that you have 2/3 of the story, whether it's Ocean's 11 or Six of Crows, and the planning and the getting the team together and how it's going to work. And then you've got about 5 seconds of the plot going the way it's supposed to go, and then everything goes to hell. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of right in the depths of everything goes to hell. And I think the difference is here you get a lot more introspection, and when it goes to hell is when you get people's backstory. And so you've got like kind of the everything goes to hell on the outside, while we also learn what's going to hell inside each of these people's heads. And so this is one of the really good chunks for that. There's so many though.
And the way that it goes left is because like I said, if you were going to guess that somebody was going to get caught, you would definitely not guess that it would be Inej, because she is so adept at hiding. But the thing is that she's just way less adaptable than everybody else.
Yeah. She's like the one pure soul in all this, like no matter what. And
she has a very specific set of skills that does not include like charisma and thinking on her feet in terms of making up stories and lies and being able to like blend in with the crowd. And so when she gets caught, I mean, she completely freezes up every time that she meets with what's her face.
Yeah.
And
Tanta Helene.
Tanta. She's the worst. Yeah, she's awful.
Yeah.
But it's just so hard to watch because you know how quick and intelligent she is most of the time. So to see her just like frozen in terror because of this woman, it's just
I think everything that goes on in these chapters with Inej around the menagerie it's heartbreaking. And it's, to anybody who is a survivor or has worked with people with that experience, it's such a familiar pattern. So the way that it's written felt really, really true to me. And that sense of like running into your abuser and just, you can have these fantasies of what you would say and what you would do. And then the minute you see them, you're back in that place and just completely frozen.
Yeah.
So to watch, especially her go through that it's brutal, and it's really good fiction at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. So the first chapter in this section, The Ice Does Not Forgive, is chapter 27, Jesper. And he is waiting by the escape route up through the chimney, wondering where the fuck Kaz is, because apparently Nina has already come and joined them. And jumped up the rope right ahead of him. And I really wasn't sure if Kaz was going to show up. And when he does, we don't find out what actually happened still.
Yeah. He shows up covered in blood and doesn't want to talk about it, which is kind of the most Kaz thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of assuming that he must have killed the guy, but Kaz seems so unsettled that I feel like that can't actually be what happened, because he doesn't seem satisfied with anything and is just still sort of on edge.
Yeah, and I think what's fascinating about that scene is there's the line from Jesper right before Kaz comes in, where he's thinking, what if he gets caught? And then he says, but he's Kaz Brecker. Even if they locked him up, Kaz could escape any cell, any pair of shackles.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this image of Kaz from Jesper, where he's like the flawless, smooth mastermind who's able to manage anything. And then he comes in the door with like missing his jacket, his gloves are off, he's covered in blood and wet.
Yep.
And, we know from the previous chapter that internally he's a complete mess. So it's a really funny juxtaposition.
Yeah, Jesper is like sort of precious in that he really buys Kaz's act at face value. He's the exact kind of person that Kaz is trying to work on when he does what he does. And Jesper goes out and amplifies his reputation. So the only person who seems to be able to see a little bit past that at all is Inej. Like even Nina doesn't know Kaz well enough to really see him being vulnerable. And Matthias is just like, well, you're obviously a demon. To which I'm like, well, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Yeah, Nina at least knows that he's a con man. She just never knows what the con is. But yeah, Inej is the only one who gets that.
So he's sitting there waiting and he doesn't know where the fuck Kaz is. And finally Kaz shows up, as you said, covered in blood. They manage to get up onto the roof. And as he's climbing, Jesper is just like, how in the fuck did Inej do this? Because I can't, like the walls are so hot that just pushing off them, I can't bear the heat through the soles of my feet. And when we finally get to the top, we find out that her feet are covered in blisters and that the rubber from the soles of her shoes is stuck to her feet and they can't get it off. So he has to use some of his fabricator powers to get that off.
And that's where Nina finds out that he's Grisha too. So that's the first time that we discover that. I think nobody knew that except for Kaz.
And it's really, there's an interesting moment later where he's like hiding and thinking about how much worse it is to think of himself being hunted as a Grisha than it does to be hunted as a criminal. Which, it would, dude, because they will put you through all kinds of shit as a Grisha that they would not bother with if you were just a criminal. So of course it's worse. Because he's sort of like, well, I don't get why I react so much more strongly. I'm like, because torture. It's not that hard, Jesper.
Well, it's both torture and it's is that the same passage where he's thinking that like he basically had three options?
I don't think so.
Okay, that may be later on then. But he's basically that as a Grisha, his life choices are really limited, but as a criminal, he's suddenly got a lot more to play with.
Yeah, so they managed to she heals like Nina's feet or Inej's feet enough, but her calluses are also gone, which I just, like she's walking barefoot on gravel and I'm just like, this is the worst possible scenario. Walking on gravel is the worst thing.
Yeah.
I have some shoes that like it hurts to walk on gravel because the soles are not thick enough, even in shoes, Yeah.
No, thank you.
Would you mind turning your volume down a little bit on me? Because I can hear my voice coming back through. I'm just trying to make sure.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay. Yeah, I've got it through an earpiece, but it may still echo.
Yeah, I think because the other side of the earpiece isn't in your ear, so it's like just going out into the air. So, okay. What winds up happening is Kaz gets yelled at basically by everybody. And they're like, you owe us an explanation because you put everything at risk and decided to go off by yourself and search another section of this when that was not part of the plan. And you did not inform anybody of that. And we all thought something had gone terribly wrong. And Nina put herself at risk looking for you because she thought something was terribly wrong. And initially he tries to get everybody to just like, get off my back, guys. And finally, right? Like, just sort of like, well, who's in charge here? And I'm just like, dude. And finally he's like, yeah, you're right. Okay. I owe you guys an apology. This was my fuck up and I'm going to have to sit with that. I own it. But essentially it boils down to still him not telling them everything. So I got a little irritated at him on that. I gotta admit, like, after, like, I get.
Well, and then he
really
admits he went looking for Pekka, but then won't say any more about it.
Exactly.
And then there's it's great that we're getting it from Jesper's perspective, because then he sees, like, Inej gives him a look, and, like, Inej and Kaz stare at each other, so he knows that she knows the story.
Yeah, and Jesper, I think, is a little jealous of not being let in on that loop. Yeah. He wants to be friends and more.
Wants to cuddle.
But he can't get through his veneer. So never
go. No, don't do it, Jesper. Don't do it, Jesper. Never go for the ones with a dark mystique. Don't.
It really does, like, when you know what's going on in Kaz's head, as we do as readers, how wrong a pairing between him and Jesper would be.
It would make me cry.
It cannot be overstated how bad a pairing that would be.
He would eat Jesper for lunch, and Jesper would be sad, and I would be furious.
And again, not in the fun way, eating him for lunch.
No, my poor murder babies.
So they are sitting there listening to these alarms going off, and they're all like, we may just have to drop this and try and get out of here. Like, this is going so badly already, and everything that we planned on depended on no alarms going off and them not being aware of what was happening. But Kaz is like, well, what if we leaned into it and made them go into black protocol? And that would cut off effectively, because that means one of the gates goes down. That would cut off all the remaining guards from the area that the party is in, where we're going to be, and they won't be able to get back up the way that they ordinarily would.
Yeah. I've got a friend who's in the military, and he said once about a different situation. So we have a saying, there's no problem you can't solve by making it worse. And that seems to be Kaz's primary theory here. Like, okay, so we're screwed. Let's make us a lot more screwed, but then they'll be screwed too.
Yeah.
Everybody's equally handicapped.
Yeah, it seems like that really is the thing, is like, if we're both screwed, but they're not quite aware how screwed they are, and we know how screwed we are, that gives us just enough of an edge to, like, make this work for us.
Right. And the social engineering aspect also means that when people are in a high emergency situation, you've actually got a lot more openings to jump through, because everyone's out of their pattern and everyone's out of their customary behavior, which ironically means they're going to be a lot more predictable, and it's going to be a lot easier to play them.
Yeah, because when things go wrong, we tend to retreat into patterns that comfort us, which means doing the same shit over and over again. So yeah, they decide that that's what they're going to do, and what the plan winds up being is that they're all going to have to sort of split up. And Inej sees the girls coming in from the menagerie and is like, that is the thing. That's how we're going to do this. And Kaz, of course, is like, are you sure? Because he understands what it meant to her to get out of there. Like, he is as close to anybody to understanding what it costs her every time she runs into this woman. So her doing this is a major sacrifice, and he is aware of that.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that he really gets it, like the extent to which this is going to be difficult for her to do. Yeah,
and it lets us get that too, because I think if it horrifies Kaz, it's gotta be awful.
Yeah. So and she and Nina are going to have to go in that way, but everyone else can't go in that way, because it's going, they all of them are going to be it's going to be very obvious that there are 6 prisoners missing, 6 questionable people going in together. It'll attract too much attention.
Yeah, and Jesper won't fit any of the dresses.
Indeed. And so Matthias, it turns out, is still holding out, and Kaz says so. And Matthias is like, what the fuck, dude? How do you know? Again. And Kaz is like, it's logic. There can't just be one way in and out, because that's really unsafe and not good for military movements. And of course there has to be. So spill it. What is it? And I love I love how obstinate Matthias is. He's like my favorite character in a lot of ways, just because he's so infuriating.
He's the paladin stuck with a pack of rogues and doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, when Kaz sort of even seems to know what the method would be, like he's already thinking ahead to like, well, what makes the most sense? Well, probably underground. And yeah, Matthias is like, and yes, it does exist and we can do it, but you certainly aren't going to be able to manage it wearing a gown. So y'all are going to have to figure out another way. And then Kaz is like, so Waylon, how hard would it be to disable one of these gates? And that's the deal. That's what they're going to do, is to drop the gate and then break the winch so that it cannot be brought back up. Which, you know what? I get what he's doing here. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. Control access points.
Yeah. So, we have Kaz, who has to say goodbye to Inej, and she is more like cut up by it than I expected, and more willing to show that she's cut up by it. She touches his face, and she can feel that it's taking like every ounce of his self-control to not pull away from her, which I wasn't sure if that was how it would be, if like Inej would be the one touch that he was able to bear, because, you know, but I kind of like that does not seem to be that way. It's just as bad, you know?
Yeah, maybe she's put her thought into how she writes his PTSD, basically. And that, you know, the effect comes from him being able to resist it, not the fact that he doesn't feel that revulsion at all. Yeah.
And it was something, but not enough. I like that line as well.
Yeah.
Because it's just a little tiny indication that maybe Inej could have been interested.
Yeah.
You know, which is such a weird thought, like, because I don't feel like the two of them are well suited to each other at all. She takes things too seriously. Kaz doesn't treat anything with gravity because he can't give away that power.
Yeah.
He treats most things with that gravity. And I just don't see them being able to like coexist from day to day and be able to like manage that between the two of them. I don't know.
I think she's got a better sense of humor than anybody realizes. I think it's a very, very subtle sense of humor.
That's true.
I think it's a very graveyard sense of humor.
Yeah.
Which is why they get along so well. I just don't think she lets it out very often. But you see it a little bit when they're standing up and they all think they're screwed, and Kaz is staring out over the wall trying to figure it out, and she and Jesper just look at each other, and there goes scheming face, which is like this recurring line that, you know, Kaz has this face he gets when he's up to something, and they're like, oh shit.
Scheming face, indeed, ma'am. And meanwhile, they have to like put the tattoos on themselves for the menagerie.
That was brutal.
Yeah, that's really like, you know, what she went through to get it gone, and now she has to put it back, and it's temporary, but still.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole and once it's back on, it doesn't look right because it's over her scar. Because apparently they put the tattoo in the same place on everybody, so they couldn't have put it on a different part of her body.
Right.
But yeah, so.
And they told us before how she got rid of it the first time, right?
Yeah, she just went to some guy and like let him do it with like a blade over and over again, I think, right? Like,
yeah, she started cutting it off herself, and then Kaz talked her into letting somebody else do it. So, to voluntarily put that back on is.
Yeah, it's just like I didn't even really think of that because I didn't think anybody would look closely enough to them to check that. But as it turns out, it's a really good thing they did. And it's just not as good at passing for somebody who belongs, as it turns out. Shocking no one, but yeah. So yeah, she has her moment alone with Kaz, and then Nina has a moment with Matthias. But we don't actually see what they talk about. It's just this sort of look between them because we know they have sort of made a vow to each other here. And let's see, I'm trying to find. If we don't survive this night, I will die unafraid, Kaz. Can you say the same? Kaz had said he didn't want her prayers, and she wouldn't speak them, but she wished him safe nonetheless. She had her aim now, her heart had direction, and though it hurt to know that path led away from him, she could endure it. So, and I like that too, that we've gotten a new motivation from her, that it doesn't just involve her paying off her debt. Now it involves her like targeting slave ships and freeing everybody and killing the slavers. And that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think that you use the expression to pass through the fire, but her climbing up the Hippocaust chimney really was her passing through the fire. And she really comes out of that with this sense of purpose. And so I think her comment about Kaz, about it being something but not being enough, is, I don't even think it's about whether or not she's interested, because I personally think she is. I think it's about her realizing that she's not willing to settle for as broken as he is in his current state.
Yeah.
That, whatever she feels, she's not willing to give up her independence and give up what that would cost her.
Yeah, agreed. So they wind up following the girls that are being searched, because they have to go through, because of the yellow protocol, I think, that they're in right now.
Yeah.
Everybody is being searched, and the guards are coming out with like brooches and porcupine quills and sashes that contain metal or wire. So it's a TSA checkpoint essentially. And anything like metal and pointy, they're like, nah, no, that's over 3 ounces. I'm sorry, ma'am. You're going to have to leave that here.
Yeah. And given this culture, it's a warrior culture, and they've got all these out of town guests from basically thief and merchant cultures. So everybody has concealed weapons somewhere. It's, the premise is that you're not supposed to have a weapon, which means everybody has one.
But I just have one. I didn't bring the normal 6. What?
I'm being very good. How am I going to defend myself in this heavily armed fortress?
So the girls go in and are searched, and then they're left alone to sort of like, fix themselves up before they come back out again. And this is when Nina and Inez drop down and knock all the girls out, and then take 2 of their outfits. Unfortunately, the outfit of the Lynx does not fit Inez very well at all. The shoes are too big. The clothes are too big, because she's curvier than Inez. What Nina's wearing fits her better, but mostly she's like just kind of able to pull things off. She's spilling
out the top, but given the role she's playing, it works.
Exactly. I really enjoy that moment where she puts it on and she's just like, what the fuck is this? Like, she just looks in the mirror.
Cleavage, Nina. We know it.
The plunging gown barely covered her substantial cleavage and clung tightly to her buttocks. It had been wrought to look like blue-green scales, giving way to a shimmering chiffon fan. Maybe a mermaid or a wave? I thought it was a horse. Well, they weren't going to put you in a dress of hooves. What do you think that is? Because I know that like Poseidon's supposed to be like, horses are connected to Poseidon. So is that why the horse and water, like that kind of?
I think it's actually supposed to be a reference to Kelpies, because the Kalish, basically all the cultures in the Grisha verse are kind of, they're like, Ravka is fantasy Russia, Fjerda is fantasy Norway. I think the Kalish are supposed to be like fantasy Ireland.
Okay.
Because they talk about how they're all red-haired and freckled and pale-skinned, and that's
Green
why
eyes.
Cass is one of them.
Yeah.
So I think it's supposed to be like a Kelpie mermaid singing off the coast.
Interesting.
thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Either way, it's kind of strange.
Yeah, it is. It's just very unexpected.
Yeah.
And when they step out, they're worried because it's just the 2 of them, and they put all 4 of those girls down.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to cover the fact that there's 2 less of them. And what she does, Nina, is give one of the guards a nosebleed, and the other guard she makes throw up.
Yep.
Which gets everybody so
to pick up her skirt.
Right? Yeah.
Pick up her skirt. She's gonna hurl.
It's pretty good. And they're able to just be like, oh my God, ugh, as she throws up and like disappear into the crowd.
Yeah. I just had to backtrack a second because I love when Inej is like, so I wonder what Matthias is going to say when he sees you in that dress. And he is like, oh, this is going to be good.
I love her interaction with the Fjerdan guard. It's like, well, it says you have freckles. I do. They're just not visible right now. Wanna see? No. You're taller than described here. Boots. I like to be able to look a man in the eye. You have very pretty eyes. He looked at the paper, then took in her ensemble. You're heavier than it says on this paper, I'll wager. I like to eat when I'm in the mood. And I'm always in the mood.
Yeah. And it is fabulous.
I love Inej in the back, and she's like watching this, and she's like, he can't possibly fall for this, can he? But spoiler alert, he loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it.
Yeah, and I love that he's being, frosty bad cop until he actually looks at her and then is like, where are you going to be? I get off at 11 and I'm allowed to hit the party, so
I'll save you a dance. He grinned like a fool, then cleared his throat, and his stern expression fell back into place. Saints, Inej thought, it must be exhausting to be so stolid all the time. And he is about to just wave Inej through. It's all going to be fine because he's so distracted by Nina. But Inej trips. And this draws his attention. What's wrong with your shoes? Show me your arms. She has the tattoo, but it doesn't look right. So she gets pushed off with this party of people that are all suspicious.
Yeah. And
she has to sit and watch Nina go through without her. And it's, the worst.
Yeah. And I think she doesn't say it explicitly here, but I'm fairly certain there's kind of a racial component to this too. Because Inej is Suli, which are kind of a traveling, like Rama type group.
Okay.
So there's kind of this context of like, the pretty white girl can be 6 inches taller and 50 pounds heavier than it says on her papers, but she can flash her cleavage and get through. And Nina is exactly as described, or Inej is exactly as described, and trips, and that's enough to get her pulled over and held for questioning.
That's interesting. Yeah, that didn't occur to me, but all right, so next chapter is Matthias, and he's just trying to fucking posture.
What if trying to play tough in front of Kaz? They're having an alpha off.
They are,
Just whip it out and measure it, boys.
So let's see, I'm trying to find, they pulled him onto the stone of the Driscoll roof, and Matthias stood and was struck by a wave of vertigo. More than any place in the ice court, more than any place in the world, this felt like home to him. But it was home turned on its head, his life viewed at the wrong angle. Peering into the dark, he saw the massive pyramid skylights that marked the roof. He had the disconcerting sense that if he looked through the glass, he would see himself running drills in the training rooms, seated at the long table in the dining hall. I really like that. That idea of like, you are so much a part of this place that when you come back later, you feel like you're still, another part of you is still there going through the motions that you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And they use their ropes to bob down. I'm trying to find exactly who goes down because I think it's Jesper and Wylan stay up there because they're going to be rappelling down in another spot.
Right.
And Matthias and Kaz go down this way. And there's this like walkway under the water, as it turns out, that this is a thing in Song of Ice and Fire too. And I'm trying to remember what the name of the castle is, but it's an underwater like walkway. Right. And he acts like, well, you're not worthy to know where it is. But in truth, it's older, like experienced members who decide that they are a fan of one of the underlings and bestow upon them the knowledge of where it is. It's not like you just figure it out. Nobody just figures it out.
Yeah, you don't actually have a vision of Joe who tells you where to take the secret walkway. It's whether or not you sucked up enough to a senior.
It was a way of culling the weak or those who had simply not meshed successfully with the group. Mm-hmm. If you'd made friends, if you'd proven yourself, then one of the brothers would take you aside and tell you on the night of the initiation, you should go to the shore of the ice moat and run your hand along the wall of the Druscale sector. At its center, you would find an etching of a wolf that marked the location of another glass bridge. Not grand and arching like the one that spanned the moat from the embassy wing, but flat, level, and only a few feet wide. So, yeah, it's glass. So in the water and ice, it is basically completely invisible. And it turns out, like, the water is absolutely freezing cold. So before you're even halfway across it, you've gone almost numb.
Yeah, I live in Wisconsin, so this is a little too vividly real for me. It's just that
dislike.
No. Why do we even live here?
Does the word uninhabitable mean anything to some people? If they just try and make it wherever they can make it.
We chant that from about now until March, but then the other 9 months are so amazing that we forget until right about now when we all go, oh my God, what are we doing?
Right. I always think of that when you watch like House Hunters and they're like looking for places in Alaska. And they're like, well, from about this point in November to about this point in late March, you can't leave. So you're going to have to store up some food. And like, it's just like, what? And these people are like, okay, well, we'll be prepared for that. And I'm like, y'all are going to kill each other. Literally murder each other. I know
people who do that here. It's not quite as long, but we are the land of many, many lakes, and many of them have islands in them. And so people will live on the islands and then boat back and forth across when the water's open. And you can snowshoe across when it's frozen, but there's like 3 weeks on either side where the ice isn't thick enough or
Yikes.
It's not broken up enough to boat. And it's unpredictable and you're 100% stranded. Like,
nope. No, thank you.
Yeah, not gonna do it. Crazy people.
Right? So speaking of crazy people, these two cover themselves in like powder to make themselves sort of blend in and then cross. And when they get to the other side, he has to faint with some soldiers and pretend to like be in charge, which gets them to stop just long enough that he can knock them out. Mm-hmm. And he has a moment of having this gun and Kaz being at his mercy.
Yeah.
And he thinks to himself, I should just fucking do it. I should just 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 do it. And of course he does not do it.
Yeah. And Kaz is like, I knew you couldn't do it. He's like, how did you know that?
Kaz says, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
He says, I wasn't sure what you'd do if it came down to this. And Matthias says, yeah, neither was I. And then he realizes and he's like, oh, you were testing me. You just chose not to pick up that rifle. And Kaz is like, I was pretty sure because you seem way too decent. And then he uses his foot and like gets one of the rifles into his hands, like within a split second. And it's clear
before Matthias could have shouldered the other rifle, Kaz would have had him down.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, so. Yeah.
The secret to gambling, cheat.
Uh-huh.
All right. So
you
then we
stink
go
of decency.
Yeah. Okay. So then we go to Jesper. I'm going to go through Jesper's thing really quick because
it's a pretty
running out of time.
Thinking and they're sawing.
They're trying to cut through the chain to get the gate to drop, and when they he almost gets caught as he's lowering himself, and Wyland does some like drunk singing that gets the attention of all of the other men, and Jesper kills one of the guys, and then they knock the other two out.
Yep.
Which I was kind of surprised that he killed them because I didn't think they were going to kill anybody. I thought they were trying to just knock everyone out. But says he snaps the guy's neck, so all right. And yeah, they managed to finally like put enough of their weight onto it to break the chain, because as much as he is a fabricator and can do a certain amount of manipulation, he isn't trained enough to be able to break the chain, no problem.
Right.
And it was also a much stronger chain than he was really prepared for.
Yeah, they were expecting like standard chain, not hardcore Drusilla, we are sons of the North chains.
Right.
And apparently they take that as seriously as absolutely everything else.
Shocking.
The only thing that I wanted to point out in here too is the when they go and they see the banners and they realize it's made of the scraps of Grisha jackets.
Yeah.
It hasn't really come up in this book if you ever read the original trilogy, every unit has its own color and they call them kefta, but they're basically like long tunics.
Okay.
In each color. And so when you become a full Grisha, you get the kefta. So they're saying every scrap in that banner is somebody they've killed.
Cool.
Yeah. Jesper does not like this.
Yeah, that's like, as much as he doesn't really identify with being a Grisha, when he sees things like that, it's just kind of, I mean, it's fucked up even if you're not one of them. So if you know that you're hiding that you're one of them, yeah. So yeah, they wind up getting past these dudes. I like that Wylan is kind of like, why don't you just kill them? And he's like, I'm not going to kill them. They're fucking knocked out. That's shitty. And Wylan's like, we could wake them up. He's like, dude, no. All right. You're being a little too bloodthirsty here. Let's go.
We're starting to wear off on you and it's starting to scare me.
There is this moment too later where he says something about how, like, oh no, you know, it is later, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Yep. He's like using numbers to like is so much easier than words because numbers don't get mixed up the same way. And Jesper's like, too bad you can't use numbers to talk to girls.
Like, just girls?
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
And Jesper's like, no, not just. And then it's like, damn, I wish that this was a longer trip and that we weren't going to be fighting for our lives the entire time. These two.
I know. It's like, if we weren't about to die, this would be kind of hot.
All right. So then we go to Nina.
Yeah.
Who is watching Inej get taken away and just has to keep her cool.
Yeah.
Well, she manages to do that. She's very good at keeping her cool. Like, that's half her thing. And
there's a name she mentions here that I just wanted to bring up because she's talking about the tricks she learned, and she says it was a trick she learned in school from Zoya, and I'm not even going to try and say her last name because it's a Russian name.
Yeah.
Zoya is what my friends and I all refer to the Six of Crows as the murder babies. Zoya is the one that we all call the Queen Murder Bitch. In the original trilogy, she's one of the high-ranking spy masters. And,
yeah, well, we get her in the flashbacks.
Yeah,
from Nina's perspective. So we've kind of met her in this book as well.
And this is, I think, the first time you really see that coming into play, though, because Nina's really working the room like a pro. But it gives us a really nice way to kind of frame that, how she's doing what she's doing and picking out who to target.
Yeah, because she makes sure to climb the stairs and watch the way that the room is flowing, and who is who in this crowd is kind of, even if you don't know the faces, by the flow of traffic, you can tell who are the most important in this crew, because those with the most influence and social clout tend to draw the most people to them. Which is a really interesting tactic that I think is a cool idea. And there's a lot of description of like the hall itself, and like the wall had been crafted in the shape of a leviathan, a giant ice dragon circling an island and swallowing its own tail. Like there is so much going on in this place.
Yeah. There's another one where it's got the wolf eating the double-headed eagle.
Yes.
And the eagle's the double-headed eagle's the symbol of Ravka. So yeah.
Well,
and there's another one that I think is the other symbol, I think, is the symbol of Novia Zem, where it's like there's another Fjerdan creature eating something.
Whatever the Novia Zem's creature is.
Yeah, it's another. I think it's the one from Jesper's homeland.
Very subtle, guys.
Yeah, well, if the Fjordans are anything, they're subtle, laid-back guys.
There had to be at least 30 massive sculptures of running, leaping beasts, their flanks gleaming slickly in the silvery light, jaws open, their slowly melting muzzles dripping occasionally onto the crowd below. It's just like, good God, again.
Yeah. It's really, really gay. It's like...
There's just so like, ugh. Yeah. And so she's standing there looking down on the crowd when immediately some dude comes up and is just like, so, nice view, isn't it? There are rooms here set aside for a little fun. And you look like more than a little fun. And Nina drops his heart rate so that he passes out and bashes his head on the banister on the way down.
I wish I could do that.
How much fun would it be to make every man who was inappropriate with you just pass the fuck out like that instantly?
Nice shoes, one up, bonk.
Oh, so good.
Drop them.
Is he all right? Asked a passing couple. Too much to drink, said Nina airily. Yeah, a little bit too much of something.
Can't handle their arsenic.
So she's like, all right, I got to find somebody high ranking who's got some privileged information. She sees this guy that looks like a general, but he looks like way too drunk to really be useful, probably. Yeah. But she decides to go for it anyway. So she positions herself in such a way that a soldier knocks into her, and she lurches and spills champagne all over herself and almost like falls down. Mm-hmm. And immediately this dude comes in, swoops in, and is just like, are you all right? I'll find you a seat. We must get you off your feet. And she's like,
I've got a room upstairs. You can go put your feet up.
Some rest in one of the upper rooms will help.
This guy has no chill.
He doesn't waste any time, does he? Oh, it's so good. Before Nina could insist that she was perfectly well but might like to take a turn on the terrace, a warm voice said, really, General Eklund, the best way to garner a woman's goodwill is not to tell her she looks sickly. The general scowled, his mustache bristling, but then he seemed to snap to attention. So true, he laughed nervously. And she turns around and says, it can't be. He drowned. He's supposed to be at the bottom of the ocean. But Harl Broom is here. Mm-hmm. Help me, who's Harl Broom?
Jarl Broom is he's like Mengele, basically. He's one of the absolute top commanders of the Drusilla, and he was the one who was Matthias's mentor and was captaining the slave ship that she was captured on.
Right. So she thought that he died on the ship that she was on. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And she knows so much about him because she was basically given a dossier on him back in the Grisha Academy as like, this is one of your top possible targets one day. Yeah.
Okay. I figured that it was somebody who had been on the ship with her, but I just couldn't remember exactly what position he held. So it's like, I'm going to guess he doesn't recognize her because why would he after all this time? And she's like dressed up so differently. Her hair's red and all of this stuff. But there's a possibility. And at the very least, she's going to be right near somebody that she's been, I'm sure, wanting to kill so very badly.
Yeah.
And is going to have to make a choice whether to stay on task or go after this dude. And yeah, that can't go well. Like,
no.
She's just, I don't know. I don't know what to predict in terms of which way she decides to go with this, because that's a really tough opportunity to give up, being in this sort of position.
I'm not exaggerating. It's like turning around and, you're standing next to Hitler.
Right? Yeah.
If you got a shot.
So the next chapter is Jesper, but we pretty much talked about that because it's really short. It's like 3 pages of them breaking the chain. And then we have 33, which is Inej. And she's with the crowd that's all been named as somewhat suspicious.
Right.
And there are obviously some people here who are nobles of some kind, or at least just wealthy. And they are not pleased at being kept here. They, spent a bunch of money on their outfits and their travel and whatnot, and they're just being held and not allowed to go to the Oslo party.
For all the managers.
Right, exactly. The guard closest to them recited in a bored monotone, "The men at the checkpoint are dealing with other guests. As soon as they're free, you'll be taken back through the ring wall and detained at the checkpoint until your identification can be cleared." "Detained," said the man in velvet, "like criminals." It's been almost an hour, by the way, that she's been kept here. That's way too long. This gives me such anxiety. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, it's like the fact that she's managed to keep her lunch in her stomach is impressive at this point.
Yeah.
Like, this is why I could never run a heist. Like, I would have sweat through everything and had such a bad case of I didn't face that.
I feel like the thing is that I'm such an over planner that I'd wind up confusing everybody, because I'd be like, and if this happens, do this, but if this happens, do this, but if this happens, do this, and do not do that other thing. And people would be like, oh my God, I can't. Just give us the one plan, please, and we'll figure it out. And I'd be like, no, you wouldn't. I don't trust you.
And now we know why Kaz only tells them one piece at a time, because otherwise.
Right? So yeah, if she was going to make this plan work, she had to be smart, stay calm, except this wasn't quite the plan, and she definitely didn't feel calm. The certainty and optimism she felt only a short while ago had all but evaporated. She waited as the minutes ticked by, eyes scanning the crowd, but when the 3/4 chime sounded, she knew she could wait no longer. She had to act now. "I've had enough," Inej said loudly. "Take us to the checkpoint or let us go." The guards manning the checkpoint were all sick of that speech. "Take us through the gate and get on with it." "Be silent," commanded the guard. "You are guests here." Inej jabbed a finger into his chest. "So treat us like guests," she said, mustering her best Nina imitation. "I demand to be taken to the gate immediately, you big blonde lump."
She tried to put on the confidence of a mediocre white lady.
Didn't sit.
It almost worked.
Didn't quite sit. He's like, "Fine. If you want to go, then we'll get you." And then, "Stop. You there." I said, "Stop." And Inej smells the perfume and is like, "Motherfucker." And Helene glides up and is like, "Oh yeah, that's not one of my girls. That's the Wraith who works with Kaz Brecker, who's an infamous criminal, and they must be here doing some shit. And also, what the fuck did you do with my chicks? Because 4 are missing." And I was just like, no. Like, getting caught out as being not who you say you are is bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody announcing to everybody who you are.
Yeah.
And letting everyone know that some shit is going down. That's a whole other deal.
Yeah. That's not just you busted. That's the whole crew has basically just gotten.
Yeah, right. Like, thankfully, there are some people on the crew that probably people wouldn't guess would be with Kaz. So they could fly under the radar somewhat. But, like, yeah. Look for the guy wearing gloves all the fucking time.
Yeah. This is a worst case scenario.
Pretty much. And she's standing there as Helene, like, goes at her, grabbing her and squeezing her. And for a moment, it's just like, not even in her body. And then all of a sudden she's like, "No, you know what? Fuck this." And grabs her wrists and twists it until Helene, like, falls to her knees.
Mm-hmm.
"I threw your girl in the ice moat," Inej snarled, barely recognizing her own voice. "And she's better off there than with you." And she has her hand around Helene's throat at this point, and I was like, "Kill her, kill her, kill her, kill her, kill her, kill her, kill her."
Finish her.
Right? But she gets dragged off her, which is too bad. And I love the fact that she lies and is like, "I killed that bitch and threw her in the ice moat." Like, that is so not what happened, but it's great. it's a good distraction, you know?
Yeah, well, I think in the back of Inez's head is just maybe that girl will wake up and run for it and marry a nice beard and ice farmer.
A moisture farmer.
It's like Kristoff and Frozen, like the guys who go out and chop up
I
ice.
never saw that.
You're not missing much. It's okay.
I've heard so many people say, oh, it's so good. But like people said that about several things that I've watched recently. And I'm like, so I'm realizing that I don't have the soft spot for like kids musicals that a lot of people seem to have.
I have a 6 and a 9-year-old, so I don't have the freedom to not see them.
I'm sorry.
Or hear the soundtrack 2,000 times. I used to love Idina Menzel, and now I hear her voice. I'm like, oh God.
Oh God. That's sad for her to be ruined. That's not justice.
Mm-mm. That's Disney. This isn't justice. This is Disney.
So finally, the guards come and grab up Inej, and they're like, so, who's on your team? What's your target? What are you here for? Who are you? And she's like, I'm not going to speak. And he says, oh, you will if we want you to. Mm-hmm. And Helene is like, I told you you'd be in these silks again, and you're going to die in them. Mm-hmm. Which I was like, you know what? She really is good at the psychological shit, because that is a fucked up thing to say.
Yes, it is.
That's really getting at the heart of the matter. When you've just been like choked, to think of something that cutting and perfect for the moment is just like, it's a special kind of horrible talent.
Well, it takes a special kind of horrible to be a slave trading madam.
Yeah.
So.
The gate slammed closed, but Inej could swear that she still heard Helene's laughter. And that's the end of her chapter. Yeah. So yeah, I don't understand what more could even go wrong. Like, other than maybe Kaz and Matthias being found out. But like, they kind of were found out. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know. I'm trying to figure how that would go, or how they're going to search for them. They know who to look for in terms of their names. I don't know if they know who to look for in terms of appearance.
Yeah.
And I don't know who else from Kaz's crew they're even like familiar with. So is Jasper at risk? Or Jesper? I always want to call him Jasper.
Yep.
Is Jesper at risk? I would imagine Wylan isn't, because he's like a fairly recent addition, so they're not going to know about him. Matthias, I'm going to guess absolutely not. They would never dream, so he's probably safe. Nina doesn't look like herself, so even if people were kind of looking for a woman that had accompanied, like, you know, in rumors, I don't think that she would be suspected.
Nina just changed her hair color though. Like she gave herself a red tint, but that's about it. She hasn't like changed her features.
That's true, because I forgot it said that she like didn't have time to do her eyes, because I've been thinking this whole time that she changed her eyes, but it actually said
she
didn't.
Wanted to be able to change them from blue to green, but that takes a lot longer, and you have to have a mirror set up to do your own eyes. And it's kind of surprising that that's not something that the guard noticed. He notices her height and weight, but he doesn't say like, your eyes are the wrong color. All the way up to her eyes. Let's be real here.
That's probably true, actually. That makes sense. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. And like Wylan and Jesper, the last time we saw them, they were busting the gate, but now they're stuck, right? Like
they're stuck in the guard station.
Where do they go from there? I don't think we know that part of the plan. No, right?
They didn't tell us what the next part of the plan is.
Huh. So yeah, I have nothing on that front.
Yeah.
And
Nina's out dancing with the head of the SS, so
I don't know. Like, I got nothing. I'm trying to think of like a prediction of something that could happen next. Mostly, I'm distracted by what the fuck happened with Kaz when he found Pekka. Like, I just can't. Did he just kill him? Because if he killed him, I feel like he would have no problem telling everybody that.
Yeah.
You know, and he would just be like, finally, I did it. But there is not that. So I assume that he stepped in there and then some shit went wrong. And, you know, the alarm started to sound from the way that you piece together the different perspectives, like almost right after he stepped into Pekka Rollins's cell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Nina thinks it went off because of the gunfire, but then Kaz kind of looks at her funny when she says that. So did somebody catch Kaz, and he's telling the truth about how he got the blood on him, and that's what set the alarm off? Or
I wonder.
We know nothing. We are all Jon Snow right now, and it's brutal.
And I'm trying to think too, like, so Nina's captured, what will she tell them? And I know that she doesn't want to tell them anything, but they're going to torture her or something, and she's going to have to tell them something. So what can she say? Can she pretend to be part of a different crew? Can she pretend to be like part of Pekka Rollins's crew, and she was trying to break Pekka Rollins out? Like, totally misdirect where the attention is? Like, or can she just escape? She's the Wraith. Can she just do that? I don't know how she manages that, though. She doesn't have any of her weapons. She's in this really cumbersome gown. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all going wrong.
It's very, very tense and stressful.
I had said, like, well, there are so many chapters left in this, but, like, those chapters were really short, which is why we were able to do, like, 6 of them.
Yeah, it starts flying really fast because it's so we're at chapter 34, but there's only like 30% of the book left. Okay, so that's a lot, but
okay, no, but that's a better amount than I expected, actually, once I realized how short those chapters were. So they must lengthen out again.
Yeah, I think this is sort of the height of everything going on at different points as they pull it together, and then I think it kind of lengthens back out.
So is there anything that you wanted to mention that you know from the other books that I haven't touched on?
No, I think we hit it as we went through. I think, if I were to speculate, I think, oh no, I got that wrong. Never mind. I was about to say, I was confusing Nina and Inej, and I was going to say, she couldn't, rather than claiming she was with Pekka's crew, she could claim she was a Ravkan, but that's not going to work for Inej.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because it seems like everybody's really being hit at their pressure point.
Yeah.
And I love it because this is all of the original Grisha trilogy is set in Ravka. It's all the internal politics there. So this is the first time we kind of get out of your starting zone and into Kerch and into Fjerda. So it's really exciting to see how those events are seen from the outside. And also it's interesting in the way that, I said that the original trilogy is very much your typical young woman discovers she has secret powers and has to save the world trilogy. And kind of the epitome of all of those is that it's, the weight of the entire universe is on one young girl's shoulders.
Right.
But these events are only a year or two after that, and nobody's talking about it. It's like the world was about to end and everybody almost died from the perspective of those characters. And from the outside, everyone's like, yeah, some shit went down in Ravka. We don't even know. It's fine. Right.
Which, I mean, that is a sign that everything went well. Nobody's talking about it and nobody knows what happened. So I guess everything turned out okay.
Where Ravka used to be.
Right,
That's
yeah.
the only spoiler I will give you on that.
And I'm really fascinated too by the idea of this drug, which, we had the opening chapter is all about that and its effect and the way that this woman busts out of there. And after that, we don't really hear anything about it again until we have Kaz get captured and he gets to see the scene of that incident.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had those that they ran into when they got here.
In the squalors.
Yeah. Which was awful because, you can imagine that somebody's an addict, but what you see when you meet them is so much more than a simple addiction. It feels like a magical addiction. Like there's another element to it than your body being dependent on something. It's like they have been possessed somehow, It's really intense. So I'm wondering when that's going to come into play again as well, because I feel like it has to, Yeah,
and I think one of the things that you learn really clearly from the first trilogy that plays into that is the idea that there's kind of two ways that fantasy worlds handle how magic affects the user. Like either magic using drains you, or magic using somehow enhances you. And for Grisha, the less you use your power, the more you waste away. So it's actually, it's like part of your life force. And if you're not regularly using it and tapping it, you are not healthy. And the more you use it, the stronger and more vital you are. So part of the effect of the Jurda Parem is that it's not only giving them these phenomenal powers that they would never normally have, but it's giving them that high of, like, imagine all of your
like
life
invincibility
being quadrupled.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Huh. All right. Well, that was a perfect wrap up. That was like exactly on time. Any additional comments that you want to make before we sign off?
No, I think I want to call dibs now and try and come back for the end, because I really want to come back for the last couple chapters with you. But
all right, cool.
We'll work out
that'd be
later.
awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this. This was really fun. It's always nice to have a break from doing it all by myself.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for coming and listening, and hope that you've been enjoying the coverage. And hopefully I will be seeing you all soon with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.